my dear friends, welcome to another episode of GP Round the Table. Let me say hello, first of all, to Michel Turco, just recovered from an illness. Hi, Michel. I see you are nice. You look nice. So it's nice.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Just a few. Yeah, it's fine. Thanks.
Okay, Matt. How are you, Matt Oxley from England?
Hi, Matt. Good, thank you. All good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Giovanni Zamani, hi, Joe.
Ciao da Milano,
Nice
più o meno. Ciao.
Seems you are in the jungle, but it's okay. Manuel Vecino from Spain. Hi, Manuel.
Hello from Madrid. Hola a todos.
And please welcome Mr. Livio Supo. Hi, Livio. Nice to see you.
Ciao. Bye. Hi, everybody.
So, Livio, you have been out from the MotoGP world for quite a long time now. We just wanted to understand if you miss your ex-world and how are you feeling?
Yeah, now this is the third season I'm missing, 18, 19, and this one. So this one, not too much to miss because this still has to start. Yeah. But anyway, I went in some races only twice. One time in Misano in 2018, just for a few hours on Sunday, and last year in Mugello just on Thursday to bring two bicycles to Dovizioso and Petrucci. So at the moment, I had no time to really spend time in the paddock and meet friends and feel sorry I'm not there. So at the moment, it's okay.
Okay. So, Michel, will you please start with your questions?
Okay. Livio, you used to be manager for Ducati and Honda factory teams with quite good success, let's say. What do you think of what became the management of this Boss team?
Ducati or HRC?
Both. Boss. I would like to have your opinion of Boss management.
Okay, first of all, and not to be political correct, it's always difficult to judge when you're outside because there's always so many things that has an influence in your choices that you should be there to really understand why they did what they have done. Anyway, in Ducati, I think we need to give a lot of respect to the job of Luigi Dall'Igna because since I left Ducati in 2009, they passed through difficult times, especially after Valentino 2 seasons. I think the company was a little bit lost, missing Filippo Preziosi as a Deus ex machina because Filippo was really a strong guy. And when the Dall'Igna arrived, step by step, they've been able to put all the things together. I don't think they have done a revolution. They were just able, Gigi has been just able to push all the correct people in the correct direction, and the bike has done a great step since then. And I think now everybody can see that the Ducati is one of the more competitive bike in the paddock. So really, they have done a good job. On the rider side, there's the big story about Jorge, of course. Where now it's easy to say they have done a mistake not to renew him. But honestly speaking, when they took the decision not to renew, it was a quite normal decision to take because the results of the Jorge has been a disaster for a long time. And suddenly when they decided to change, it started to be competitive. So they have been quite unlucky, I think. Last year, they've been leading the team championship till the last race. It means the team of last year with Petrucci and Dovizioso was not that bad at all. Dovi was second in the championship for the third time, and Petrucci won also a race. So I think a team that was on paper not so strong, in reality became very strong during the season. So I think it's more positive than negatives. With Honda, I think it's a little bit different, honestly. I think that since we left, Nakamoto-san and myself, except Marc, that was already there, everything they have done has not been a big success because Jorge's story has been a disaster. I think it's been a disaster also to lose Danny and to let him go to KTM as a test rider. And now, if it's true that they signed Paul, I think to sign a rookie, doesn't matter if he's called Marquez or not, but to sign a rookie for only 1 year and then change him even before seeing how he's performing is a little bit weird. So I have a lot of respect for what Ducati has done so far, less for what Honda is doing.
Okay, Matt, would you go next, please?
Yeah, Livio, you worked with Casey through most of his GP career. Let's say from the beginning, a little stop, and then to the end with Ducati and Honda. Could you tell us how he developed as a rider, both on the track and in the garage, from like 2007 to 2012? How did he change? How did he develop in his riding talent and in his engineering talent, if you like, his ability to work on the bike?
Okay. Well, yeah, when we start working with Casey, he had only 1 year experience in MotoGP with Lucio, with the Honda. And, you know, he was a young kid, super happy to be in a factory team. Everything we bring him was positive, and he had a big, in 2007, he was the perfect rider. He was in good mood, able to ride more or less everything. Even if the first time he tested the bike, he thought to have destroyed his career. This is, he told us after. But the first time he rode the bike in Valencia 2006, the difference between the Honda V5 1000 and the Ducati 800 was huge, of course. Much more peaky engine and everything. But he was a genius in the capability to manage the throttle, and he adapted very quickly to the bike. So I'd say 2007 has been a dream season, not only for the result, but also for the atmosphere. And he was a young kid, happy with what he was doing, getting results better than he expected. So it was super, super good. It's the same when he moved to Honda in 2011. He was enthusiastic to be in Honda, the bike, he loved the bike. And again, it seems it was possible to do everything with that bike. While in 2012, that at the end was the last season of Casey, he was struggling a lot when they changed the tire. He started suffering of chattering, and then it was quite almost lost. You know, it was impossible for him to find a way to solve the problem. And probably, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that the decision to quit racing at the end of the season had an influence in the performance of 2012. So honestly speaking, I think his talent was so huge that I didn't see a real way of growing in how to ride the bike. His talent was unbelievable since the first day I see him, and remain the same until the end, except that it depends a lot on how we felt in that moment, you know. So Casey was more this kind of rider, more than a constant grow, like I think Marc is doing. Marc is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Casey was a diamond since the beginning, but can be very good or very bad depending on maybe a few things.
Matt, sorry to interrupt you. You were meaning also regarding characters, or just as a riding style and as a rider?
Sorry.
I don't know if Matt was meaning also.
More just as a rider, yeah. More just as a rider, yeah.
Sorry about
the problem is that the performance of the rider are so influenced by their mentality, by their mind. You know, if they are happy, it's easier to go faster. If they think the bike is good, they go faster. If they think the bike has a problem, they amplificate everything.
Yeah, Manuel, please.
Yes, Livio, I wanted to ask you about Nakamoto that you work with. For me, he was kind of the last Mohican of engineer generation that was somehow linked to Mr. Soichiro Honda, or at least to his philosophy, okay? And now there is a new generation with Takeo Yokoyama as the leader. And one time talking with Takeo, it was a surprise for me because he didn't knew the story of Mr. Soichiro Honda and this all what was behind. So it was very surprising, and he didn't even know who was Irimajiri-san. So that was for me a big surprise, because Honda has been always very proud of their history. So you have worked with both, with the old generation, with Mr. Nakamoto and with Mr. Takeo. Which is the difference? Did you feel that how do they approach racing?
Well, the difference between Nakamoto-san and Takeo is huge. One is a proper manager with a great vision, with the intelligence to don't do everything by himself and let people do what they think they are better to do. And this is the reason why, for example, he in 2009 he signed several engineers from Yamaha. That is not usually an HRC move. Or he asked me to join HRC. He had a very open mentality. He had a lot of experience in Formula One, so he was a proper manager. Takeo is an engineer with experience. He has been studying in the United States. He has been for many years the HRC technician of Dani, chassis guy in Japan for the NSR 250. So even if they have the same background, because also Nakamoto-san is a technician, I think Nakamoto-san is probably, especially for the character and for the Formula One experience, developed a much stronger manager capability, while Takeo is a race guy that has a vision also only on racing. And this is, I think, the biggest difference between the two.
Thank you.
Livio, I wanted to know something about who choose the riders in HRC. I mean, we know that there is the possibility that Paul Espargaro will go in HRC to replace Alex Marquez. But in your opinion, who decided that? Alberto Puig or Japanese guys? Or
As I said since the beginning, Giovanni, I'm not there, and it's very difficult to understand.
Sorry, Livio, when you were there, who decided?
When I was there, it was basically Nakamoto-san and myself. This was the way we were speaking, and sometimes we listen suggestion for the young kids, suggestion from Alberto, because Alberto at that time was following for HRC Moto3 and was a kind of advisor. And of course, Alberto has a long experience in choosing young riders. We know that the Movistar, Copa Movistar, no, Manuel was called. He did a good job in this, absolutely. But basically, the decision was taken by Nakamoto-san and myself. And then once we had a list of candidates, he was speaking in Japan with the big bosses, just mainly for the budget reason. At the moment, I don't know if he's Nomura-san, that is the president of HRC, and Alberto. I have no idea. Or Alberto has a stronger influence because as a former rider, Japanese trust him a lot. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Michel.
Livio, there is a name you forgot in all these names is Kuwata-san. He's supposed to be the manager. Takeo is a guy in charge of the technique.
Yes, in fact, for the rider, I didn't speak about Takeo. I said Alberto and the Japanese.
Yeah. But what's the job of Kuwata?
You remember when Nakamoto-san went to pension, in theory, he has been replaced by three guys, Kuwata, Kokubu, and the third one was the administrative guy, I don't remember the name. So in theory, Nakamoto-san has been replaced by Kuwata and other people. At the moment, as far as I know, Kokubu is not anymore involved in MotoGP. I think he's following Superbike. The other one, I think, went to pension also. And Kuwata-san remains HRC director. He's the one that is more linked to the racing activity of HRC in MotoGP. But I think there's a huge difference between the way HRC works now with Nomura-san as a president instead of Suzuki-san that was the president at my time. At that time, if you compare Kuwata and Nakamoto, The personality and the experience and the background is totally different. So let's say that at that time, HRC was everything around Nakamoto-san. I think at the moment, Kuwata is more, Nomura is more what was Nakamoto-san before, even if Nomura is the president and Nakamoto was the vice president, but these are names. At the end, I think Kuwata is more in the shadow of Nomura comparing on what Nakamoto-san was with the Suzuki.
Marquez took a lot of power in Honda, and you were one of the one who fight against that and try to keep the power in Honda. So how do you see the situation now in Honda? Because it seems that the decision not to get Paul is also a part of the strategy between Honda and the Marquez. How do you see that? And what do you think about the fact they signed Marquez for 4 years?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to clarify. You said that I was one to fight against the power of Marc. Honestly, I don't see what you mean, because when you have a rider that is so strong as Marc is, clearly is getting power in the company. Honestly speaking, at least until I was there, this was not something that created problem to HRC. Of course, the only thing that really had an influence with was that Marc, for example, if he wanted to change the mechanics, he had the power to do it, because if a rider is winning so much and he say, I want different mechanics, you have to, I mean, it's impossible to say no. But apart from that, honestly, I didn't have to fight with Emilio or Marc for anything. Having said that, the first strange things that I feel in this moment, and I said in some interview also before the Paul Espargaro rumor, is that they sign a contract of only 1 year for Alex. Because if you compare 1 year for Alex and 4 years for Marc, I think is very, very strange that the same company has such a different approach into different riders. Alex is a rookie. If you believe in a rookie, I think you need to give time to him to adapt to the new class. We all know that Alex is not Marc. It will take time to be fast on a MotoGP bike, because it was the same in Moto2, for example. So I felt a very, very strange move to sign only 1 year with Alex.
Because he was chosen by in a special moment, because they have to replace Jorge at the end of the season. So it was also special circumstances.
Yes, but this doesn't have an influence, in my opinion, on the fact that you believe or not in a rider. Because if you don't believe in Alex, at that time there was Zarco without a ride. Yeah. And if you need a rider to just solve the problem of Jorge for 1 year, then you can sign Zarco for 1 year and see what happens. I think Zarco would have accepted 1 year contract, and Alex had a contract for Moto2, so it was not that he needed desperately to ride. So even if it was in a strange circumstance, they had everything to do a proper choice. It means to say, okay, this is a young guy. We know that he's a guy that takes time to be fast on the new class. So if we want to be with this contract that expired together with all the others, we can sign a 3 years contract. At the beginning, when I started working in this world in the 90s, HRC had a policy to do with the rookies 3 years. The first one, they didn't ask anything. The second one, you need to start to deliver some result. The third one, if you don't deliver result, they will change you. And this, I think, was a serious approach for a rookie, because not all the rookie are Marquez. Marquez, Marc.
Okay, very clear. Matt, please.
Sorry, the 4 year for Marc. Honestly, I don't understand why they signed on both sides, Marc and HRC, because don't forget that they signed this agreement before the start of the season. It means that when they announced the 4 year agreement, they had 5 years contract in front of them. And 5 years in racing is a very long time for both, because also for the rider. Can happen that in HRC something change and they are struggling to do a competitive machine, and then you're obliged to stay there. So I felt I was quite surprised when I saw such a long contract.
Please, Mark.
Livio, I think everyone would really like to know what you've been doing since you left MotoGP. I think it's still involved with two wheels, but could you just tell everybody what you're doing?
Yeah, we basically, since a few years before I quit, I wanted to do something by myself. And then I try a mountain bike with electric engine, and I felt in love, and I said, okay, this is so nice, and I would like to do one by myself. And so we had this startup, it's called Toki Bikes, and we produce e-mountain bike.
Wonderful. Wonderful mountain bike.
Thank you. Giovanni is one of our talkers, and we have fun. Is a totally different experience. Of course, for some things, is much more easy to be a manager than to have a business by yourself. But on the other side, when you have when you create, at least when you are involved in the creation of something new, is really special. So it's good.
Thank you.
Orwell.
And by the way, Livio, your bikes are branded Ducati as well, aren't they?
Yes, we have two different brands. Our own brand, it is Toki Bikes, and then we have a licensing agreement with Ducati. So we produce the e-mountain bike for Ducati, and we sell in the Ducati dealership at the moment in Europe. Soon, hopefully, also in the United States.
Livio, I have a question. Look, Matt.
Sorry, Michel. Can I just ask one more question to do with that? I was just interested in Ducati selling an electric bike. I mean, obviously, you know, I live in London, and electric bicycles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And you know, even now, there's kind of really no point to buy a scooter anymore, because you know you have to insure a scooter, you have to pay to park it, you have to wear a helmet, you have to do you have to stop at red lights. You know, on a bicycle.
Here also with the bicycle.
on a bicycle, you know, this is London. You know. I'm sure it's the same in Italy and Paris and everywhere else. But so, you know, e-bikes are just amazing things. I'm just wondering if you think Ducati are kind of thinking this is going to be an expanding market. Maybe not so much for mountain e-bikes, but just for e-bikes in general.
If you look at the motorcycle market, most of the company are doing e-bikes. Husqvarna, that is KTM brand, they build up a company, a big one since the beginning. Because KTM bicycle are not owned by KTM motorcycle, because when the company in the 90s, I think, went almost bankrupt, they shared the company in three, so Radiator, motorcycle, and bicycle, and the bicycle brand was bought by the Chinese company. So now with the boom of the electric bike, KTM felt like they are missing something. I think they tried to buy again the brand for bicycle, but the Chinese ask too much money, so they build up their own company for Husqvarna. Then there is Kawasaki as a licensing agreement, Fantic Motor I think at the moment the turnover of Fantic is 50% bicycle, 50% motorcycle. Ducati, we started with this, they had a kind of soft approach of doing a licensing with us, but anyway, they are trying to understand a little bit the business. Of course, for Ducati, the heritage of Ducati off-road is not that big, it's almost zero. And we start with the mountain bike, but the Ducati brand is really strong, and the numbers are not huge, but it's growing. So I believe all the motorcycle company have a kind of interest. They are looking at the e-bike market, especially because the motorcycle market is not growing basically worldwide. And unfortunately, more and more the clients are getting older, and the young generation, it seems, unfortunately, not to be interested in motorcycle. And the e-bike market is growing double digit every year. So, of course, this is something interesting.
Thank you. Sorry, Michel.
Livio, in your opinion, which is the brand that is managing best their strategies, their rider policies in MotoGP. Because we see, for example, that Yamaha, they sign immediately the riders before anybody else, and now they have two young riders. We see that Suzuki is a very calm box, that nothing, no noise comes out of there. KTM has his own strategy by their own growing up their own riders. From your point of view, looking from outside now, which
in the last few years, I think Suzuki, because they have this policy to grow young riders and to believe in them. The fact that they renew both riders is a good point, I think, because in other companies, probably the result of Reims would have not been enough to get a renewal. But I like their approach, and the fact that Maverick is in Yamaha now anyway he was born in Suzuki as a MotoGP rider. No? So I think Suzuki is doing a good job with no crazy move, no dramatically trying to find the new hero, and step by step they are growing. Of course, they have less pressure than other manufacturers because if Suzuki get the result they are taking in the last few years is enough. For Yamaha it's not, and for Ducati neither. So when you have this pressure to win, it's more difficult. But I think they are doing a good job.
Sam.
Livio, coming back to Casey Stoner,
Yes.
I always wanted to ask you, but I always forgot to ask you. But now I remember. When he was a test rider for HRC, he wanted to race in Austin.
Yep.
And what's happened? Why? Because I think that Danny Pedrosa was unfit, if I don't remember.
Yes.
Okay. And he wanted to replace him. What's happened?
It happened that we considered seriously the proposal, but at the end we thought it was better not to do it for several reasons. First of all, Nakamoto had a huge respect for Casey. Don't forget that Casey was the one that bring back HSC to the title after several years. And Nakamoto, the son had a kind of he didn't want Casey to do something that can have a bad influence in his reputation, let's say. Then there was a difficult start of the season of Marc that was anyway 2 times in a row world champion. And in 2015, you remember, until Barcelona, if I well remember, he was struggling with the bike, so he came from a start of the season. It was not easy. And altogether, we thought it was better don't do it. And Casey still believed that I was the one to say no, and that's why he doesn't speak with me anymore. But this is Casey.
But we last week, I think, Stoner said that Marquez doesn't want him like HLC test.
This is absolutely no. This is Casey. You know, when Casey, if you know Casey, you know that Casey. If you speak with Casey 10 minutes, he tells you at least twice. Believe me, because he always knows everything, and he believes that Marquez was the one to say no. In reality, Emilio and Marquez was not involved at all. I tell you, in this decision, we informed them. But they didn't have one word on it. And honest, knowing Marc, I don't think he would have been worried to race against Casey. Probably he would have loved.
And we all miss that chance. We miss that chance. Michel, any more questions?
Last one for me. Livio, you were the one who took Jack Miller from Moto3 to MotoGP. Next year, he will be a Ducati factory rider. What do you think he can do in Ducati factory team?
Well, first of all, I'm happy for Jack. Jack, since we signed, I think has changed a lot. Because when we signed him, he was probably a little bit too young, a little bit too crazy, and with no knowledge of what was to be a MotoGP rider, was taking it not seriously enough. as far as I understood, now has changed completely the approach. And the result of the second part of last year was getting better and better. If I'm not wrong, he was 3 times in the podium in 6 races, in the last 6 races. So it's not easy at all. And I'm happy to see him in a factory ride, because we have been criticized a lot, saying that we would have destroyed his career. I don't know if he was doing a normal career going through Moto2, it would have been better or not. But anyway, reaching a factory team, a competitive factory team like Ducati, I think proves that his career was not destroyed by our move.
Okay, any more questions, guys? Or Matt and Zam?
I have one. Livio, can you tell, it was in 2005 that Ducati went to Bridgestone, isn't it?
Yeah.
2005? Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Can you tell us a little bit, it's a long time ago now, because this was very important in Bridgestone growing up to be the top power in MotoGP. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to change and how the negotiations went, and how did the whole Bridgestone deal come about with Ducati?
Okay. Try to be because it's a long story, try to be very short. Basically, you remember Ducati had a debut season in 2003, super positive, with a win, podium in the first race, and the expectation for 2004 was, of course, even more. But as often happened, results in 2004 were not as good as in 2003. We got 2 podium only in the last 2 races, Phillip Island with Loris and Valencia with Troy. At that time, I was the responsible of the MotoGP project in Ducati, and during the season, we had a negotiation with the Sete Gibernau that was asking a lot of money that Ducati had no. And at the end of the day, at the time, Sete was the second stronger rider, except Valentino, but still enough to win 2 races a year, 2 or 3 races a year, not more. So the opportunity to sign with Casey was super expensive, and probably the chance to win the championship was anyways 0, and what you can get, it was a kind of wins. That was something that we desperately needed to keep the sponsors happy and renew the contracts, especially with Philip Morris. Therefore, I start thinking that there was you look at the result of the other team, and there was Tamada on a Honda and Bridgestone that was winning races and finish on the podium. And some races was a disaster, but some races was a super fast. That rider was coming from the Superbike, Japan Superbike. He didn't win the title in that class. And there were riders like Troy Bayliss, Nicky Hayden, Colin Edward that were world champion or AMA champion in case of Nicky. That with Mission, they were not winning anything. So I was thinking, probably in some races, this tire make a huge difference, and probably instead of spending money to find a rider able to win a couple of races, we can get money out of Bridgestone to race with the tires, and problem opportunity. So we were looking for money, and we were looking desperately to find something that allowed us to do some really good result. And then I remember we were in a Monday test in Estoril. I rang Claudio and Filippo and say, I think we should move to Bridgestone. And of course, as engineers, they thought I was crazy, because at that time, the better tire were Michelin by far. And if you remember, in 2004, Bridgestone had also the problem with, for example, with Nakano in Mugello, when the rear tire exploded. So you had to be a little bit crazy to think that to move to Bridgestone was a good move in the time. Honda at the end of the season said ciao to Bridgestone, I don't want you anymore, after what happened with Nakano. So they basically remain only with Suzuki and Kawasaki, that at that time they were not so strong. So it was a big risk, but basically the reason why I pushed the company to do it was because we desperately need to do good results, and it was the cheapest way to achieve it.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, Zam, last question.
Livio, I wanted to speak about the Ducati title in 2007. You remember, like me, that there were many rumors that Ducati was not regular with the engine, with the fuel, with many things. And I wanted to know what do you remember of that period about this situation? It was a strange situation, in my opinion, and I wanted to know your opinion on that.
I remember, and I felt very bad because Filippo Preziosi was a manager, very, very honest, he was following the rules, and he absolutely was fair, no? So I was really sorry for him that at the beginning of the season, the rumors, I mean, not only rumors, the people were saying that we had probably a 1000cc engine and that we were hiding fuel somewhere. So after the Chinese Grand Prix, basically we asked FIM to open our engine and to check the capacity and to check if there was fuel everywhere. And they did it. Of course, everything was okay. And that's it. But you know, it's like in these days when Marc win, everybody say Honda is the best bike out there. In reality, is Marc making the difference. And at that time, if you look at the result of Loris, that was the season before, was close to win the title. He was struggling with that bike. It means people are sometimes they don't really look at the reality, because how is possible if we had such a big advantage, like a bigger capacity or more fuel in the bike, also the other Ducati rider would have been super fast. In reality, it was Casey able to take out of the bike the best.
Okay, no more questions, guys? No? Livio, before leaving you, we learned from Carlo Fiorani in the last week that you used to be a very good enduro rider. Please, because you have exceptional emotional experiences in the rally rides.
Yes. Yeah, I've been lucky enough when I was young to send a postcard that was on Motosprint to participate to the selection of the Camel Trophy bike. That was the first time Camel Trophy Camel organized a Camel Trophy for a motorcycle and not for cars. And I was able to do, I mean, I was lucky to do first the regional selection and then the national selection at the Motor Show of Bologna, and to participate to the race in Baja California. So super lucky. I don't think I was so fast. It was more a promotional activity, so they were looking for somebody that were able to speak English, and probably it was, at the selection there were riders faster than me for sure.
Okay, but is it true that Carlo Fiorani broke your bike once?
Yes, yes. I had some issue with the front fork, so he went with the mechanics to a car shop somewhere, and both the spring of the valves of a car to add in the spring of our fork, then the fork became basically impossible to
pump. It couldn't
pump, yeah. And testing it, it broke the front fender. So there are several pictures of that event with my bike without the front fender, because Fiorani broke it.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you very much, Livio, for being with us at
Thank you to you.
We'll see you soon, guys. Ciao Zam. Bye bye, Matt. Au revoir, Michel.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.
Grazie.
Ciao, ragazzi.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Everybody. Bye bye.